Ty the Tasmanian Tiger 4. Never in my life have I ever received so many messages and comments that all said the exact same thing. Dude, did you hear that Ty 4 is out? Yeah, I know. Believe me, I probably knew before any of you did. In fact, the game actually came out 2 years ago. Just not on Steam. It came out on the Windows 8 store 2 years ago, and here it was simply known as Ty the Tasmanian Tiger. Looking like a simple 2D remake of the first game made in Flash, it was more or less a sequel of sorts, generally continuing the plot from where Ty 3 left off. I even mentioned it at the end of the Ty 3 video I made last year.
In 2013, they made a 2D remake of the first Ty game for Windows 8.
Wow, way to be wrong, asshole. It's not a remake at all. It wasn't until just this past September that they finally dropped it on Steam, retitling it Ty the Tasmanian Tiger 4. I imagine they did this to drum up more interest in the game, and I guess it really worked. For a month straight I was hearing nothing but, "Have you heard about Ty 4? Dude, they just put Ty 4 on Steam. Man, when are you gonna review Ty 4? Now. Ty 4 is a 2D side-scroller not unlike the Game Boy Advance versions of Ty 2 and Ty 3. Did I even talk about these last time? There's not much to talk about, I guess. They're both just simple 2D side-scrolling versions of the games, much like Rayman 3's Game Boy Advance version. Not bad, but nothing amazing either. Initially, Ty 4 reminded me a lot of Rayman Origins with the 2D art style, though it's not nearly as pretty. Environments are nice looking, but all the characters are animated simply by moving around their assets rather than having several frames of animation. Rayman did the same thing, but with a much better engine that heated more impressive results. Ty 4 doesn't look much better than a high production value Flash game. That said, the game is only $6, so what can I say? Ty still sports most of his moves from the 3D games. He can throw up to 2 boomerangs at a time, he's still got that gliding abilities, and he can still grab ledges that he doesn't quite make the jump for. The bite attack returns, though now it's mapped to the same button as the boomerang, will be used automatically if at close range with an enemy. I thought it was weird at first, but it works enough, and it never occurs when I don't want it to. You're still able to chomp away at Spy Egg's homing attack style, which is fast-paced and visceral as always, though I still say Sonic's homing attack is a lot more fun to use. New to Ty 4 is a charge attack. At any given time, you can power up a boomerang, costing you 10 opals to launch a turbocharged attack. This can be used for destroying larger obstacles and breaking the defenses of bigger enemies. While I like the idea, I don't like that it completely halts the momentum of the game. You can't move while charging, and it slows down time. It was cool the first couple of times, but after I had to stop and charge up every time I saw one of those beetle enemies, I started to feel burnt out on using it so often. In Mega Man games, you can charge up your Mega Buster without stopping the game, being able to freely move while doing so I don't see why they couldn't have done the same thing here. Outside of this, the combat is very simple. Most enemies take a single boomerang to kill, others taking a couple more or a bite to break their defense. I hardly feel any challenge come from the combat since nearly everything dies in one hit. Now, while I don't mind this, and in fact I'm sure many of you know about how I feel about intricate combat being in platformers, I don't like how they try to ramp up the difficulty later on by simply adding more enemies. You can only throw 2 boomerangs at a time, so even though each enemy dies in one hit, you can only take out 2 at a time before waiting for your rangs to return. It's a little bit of a pace breaker sometimes. Now, hitting enemies that are airborne can occasionally be an issue. Now, there's 2 ways to play the game, with the mouse and keyboard, and then with the gamepad. If you're using the mouse, you can aim wherever on the screen, making targeting and hitting what you want easy as pie. Now, if you're using a gamepad on the other hand, and believe me, the game feels way better using a gamepad, you can't aim wherever you want. Instead, the game will rely on an auto-aim. It gets the job done most of the time, but the second anything is directly above you, you're out of luck. This applies to not just airborne enemies, but switches that also happen to be above you. I occasionally found myself grabbing the mouse just to throw a boomerang at a switch above me. Was it that hard to make Ty throw a rang upwards by holding up when you throw? The game also doesn't support DualShock 4. Seriously? Freaking Undertale supported DualShock 4, and that game was made in Game Maker. I understand that this is a port of a game from 2013, but that doesn't mean they couldn't have added it. Whatever, I guess I'll just have to use Input Mapper. If you haven't downloaded this program already, it is a godsend for DualShock 4 owners. From the title screen, you can access a costume shop. There's a lot of different skins for Ty, some of which being characters from previous games, and even Ty's outfits from Ty 1, 2, and 3. I like the Tai 2 costume best. It's before they threw a bunch of belts on him to try and make him look cool. Though once I figured out you could play as Sai, I played the rest of the game as him. What can I say? I'm a big sucker for evil robot versions of characters. I probably have Metal Sonic to thank for that. Not unlike the first Tai game, you'll enter a level with a main objective, with maybe a couple of side objectives scattered throughout the level. This time around, the main objective will advance you to the next stage, while the side objectives will simply reward you with a Thunder Egg. I'm not sure if these even do anything this time. I'm pretty sure it's just a meaningless collectible just to mark the fact that you've done the objective. I don't think they actually unlock anything. I might be wrong. I don't know. I didn't notice that they did anything. There's also time trials you can find in the stages, some having you race through glowing hoops, and others will have you try to catch this turkey. There's also a leaderboard showing the world's best times, which that's not something I've ever cared about. Though honestly, I do feel strangely great about knowing that I've caught this turkey in this one stage faster than anyone else on the planet. Yeah, that's right, I dare you to try and catch this turkey faster than I did. Bet you can't. Many of the objectives, main and optional, all involve a lot of tedious fetching. For example, oh, the dam's leaking, gotta find the plugs and bring them to the dam. Or, my sheep are missing, grab them and bring them back. It's all about finding a number of objects and bringing them all back to point A. The repetition and mission design has the game struggling to keep my attention at times. Sometimes you can screw yourself over too. This guy wanted me to kill a bunch of sharks, but I wiped most of them out before talking to him, so I didn't have any sharks to fight. I got stuck and I had to restart the level to fix it. Though that was the only progress halting bug I managed to find, so I suppose the game's likely in good hands right now. Just like previous games, you can also visit the shop to purchase new boomerangs. There's not much variety this time around, and there's nothing really here that's new either. There's not much use for them anyway, considering how often the game requires you to use the main story boomerangs. Like Tai 1, your primary boomerangs are the Blazerang, the Blizzarang, and the Plasmarang. They've got different names, but they're pretty much the same as the 3 elemental boomerangs from the first game. You got your Fire Boomerang to break ice blocks and light torches, and then the Ice Boomerang to destroy fire blocks and freeze platforms, and then finally the Electricity Boomerang to power generators and break through enemy defenses. I feel as the multiple boomerangs just don't add much this time around. It quickly becomes a chore having to pause the game constantly to switch back and forth every time you need a different boomerang, and then switching back to the one you bought at the shop because it does more damage. You'll unlock the elemental boomerang simply as the story progresses, and let me tell you right now, this game does not even care when it comes to the story. You can tell that the developers really knew how silly and dumb the plot ended up getting by Tai 3, so they didn't even try to take it seriously this time around. Remember how Fluffy died in Tai 3? She's back! She came back! Oh, wait, no, she's a robot. I've never seen anything like this before. Sly also just decides that he's evil once more, but he turns out to be a robot too. S-rank plot twist. It doesn't really have any genuine camp to it since it's dumb on purpose this time, but it's refreshing to see a Tai game try to take itself a little less seriously for once. The game takes a really nice direction music-wise. Imagine the really chill and acoustic tracks I really dug from Tai 2 and Tai 3 and get rid of all the dumb tracks. That's pretty much Tai 4's soundtrack. It's definitely a step in the right direction from previous games. Or maybe it's a step sideways. Well, they kind of... Maybe they just sawed off one of the feet? I don't know what I'm talking about. The game's not terribly long. I managed to beat it in just over 3 hours, though it felt much longer than that because I often left the game open and running doing something else every time I beat a level. It's not a bad game at all, but I guess it just didn't really hold my attention very well. Again, like Rayman Legends, there's a lot of hidden items and collectibles in each level. It adds a bit of replay value, but it's nothing I'm gonna go back for. So, overall, it's okay. It's a $6 Flash game. Well, it looks like it's made in Flash. I don't know if it's actually made in Flash, but that's what it looks like, and you can pretty much take it for face value. It's a 2-year-old average experience that's being newly marketed by slapping a 4 onto it to hopefully spark nostalgia-influenced purchases. Tai 4 kinda left a similar taste in my mouth that the first game did. It's a mediocre platformer, though mediocre for different reasons. Tai 1 was a fun game with a lot of issues in pacing and level design. Tai 4 doesn't have many issues with pacing and level design, but it's rather a more functioning title where the core gameplay just isn't as fun. I did ask Chrome if they had any more plans for upcoming Steam releases, and they responded telling me that they're hoping to get the first 3 Tai games on Steam. Now, if that does end up happening, I'd highly recommend getting the second one. Maybe the first one. Not the third one. Wow, I guess I'm finally done. I guess I can finally stop talking about Ty the Tasmanian Tiger. Wait, they made mobile games, didn't they? There's like a couple of Ty mobile games. Why don't we just leave it at they exist? Okay, here's my pitch for Ty 5. Give him a gun. Time is running out.